The following program has been rated GE by the Kenya Film Classification Board. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Hello viewer, welcome to GBS TV. This is Chungu Jamii, the station that brings you everything we discuss in the family and also in our society. Today I'm joined by a very special guest who is going to be talking to us about a very special topic as well. We may be wondering what mental illness is, and so today we present to you mental illness at the place of work. Welcome my guest, please introduce yourself.
Thank you for that, Betty. I appreciate. My name is Edna Chawia. I'm a clinical psychologist and the founder of Tabasamu Resource Center, a mental health and support center that supports people in different places. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here. I look forward to our discussion today. I'm actually excited about today's session because I think we'll borrow a lot from all of our experiences, and I'm hoping to be able to benefit all of us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Edna. You mentioned in your introduction that you run a resource center and you're also a clinical psychologist. What does a clinical psychologist do, Edna?
So a clinical psychologist basically offers psychotherapy. One of the main things that we do is offering psychotherapy, which is counseling. It's almost similar to counseling. Clinical psychology also involves supporting people within the clinical setup, basically supporting people who are going through different mental health issues within the clinical setup. That's the hospitals. We support people in schools as well. We support people in rehabilitation centers as well, among others. So clinical psychology has a lot to do with counseling, offering counseling and mental health support to people in different places and providing assessment, psychological assessment for the same people as well, to ensure that everyone is working at their best and thriving in whatever they do.
Okay. So what moved your heart into Tabasamu Resource Center?
Actually, when I was doing my undergraduate, let me start there. When I was doing my undergraduate, at the time, mental health was a very quiet area in our country. So I was sourcing for a place to do my internship. And I was struggling with options because not very many people were offering mental health support at that level. And I was also wondering, why is there nowhere that we can get information about these mental health centers or these places that offer these services at the time? So I remember one of the things that was a pain point for me was a way to create awareness about mental health. Why? Because psychology is a kind of profession that first benefits you before it can benefit anyone else. So for me, I could see the difference that psychology had made to me, even while I was learning about it. And I was thinking, something the entire world needs to know about, or at least in our setup, Kenya needs to know about, to be able to facilitate and support people through the things that they are struggling with. I used to see people struggling with a low self-esteem, and I saw what psychology can do. The magic psychology does around self-esteem, it's beautiful. I'd see people struggling with relationships, and I knew what psychology can do in terms of relationships, a big area. And I would see people struggling even with illness, and I saw what psychology can do in terms of illness. So that was where my weight or my burden was coming from. And therefore I thought I'd like to come up with a center that one provides information and creates awareness about issues of mental health. Then above all else, be able to support the community as well and give them mental health services where we can. That is what informed my desire to open up Tabasamu. Yes.
Wow, that's a good one. At least you didn't just do that for money making issues, but at least you had such a passion. You know, you were really looking for something, and I'm hopeful that you got what you were looking for. So today, Edna, we're talking about mental health in the workplace. A lot of times when we hear about mental illness and mental health, all that we know is that people who are mentally ill are somewhere in Madare, people who are mentally ill are walking on the streets with tattered clothes or without clothes at all. The people who are picking up garbage and eating up. So when you talk about mental illness in the workplace, it puzzles me, like, is there a different definition to mental illness, or it's just the same one that we know?
Actually, and I'll try and stay as light as possible. I like the things that you've pointed out because I think those are issues that very many people grapple with, especially when they think about mental illness. And one of the things that I like, the fact that you brought up the fact that the people you know who may be mentally ill may be walking down the streets and picking garbage, because that's what we all knew as we were growing up. You know, now the space of mental health, let me give you the simplest expression of difficulty with mental health. Have you ever been in a situation that you felt so overwhelmed and you felt like if everything did not stop in that particular instant, you are not going to get through another minute? Have you ever been in that kind of space? And I believe so many people have.
Yes.
You see, the thing about mental health is, or mental illness, it's that it's our ability to function. It's about our ability to function, you know, and it ties into everything. Actually, we can't do anything physically if we are not okay mentally. And that is why when we are feeling stressed, for some reason we become clumsier. You keep dropping things everywhere. Why is your body not cooperating with you? And yet your only issue is stress. You're thinking too much. And now your body can't all of a sudden cooperate with you. Why is that? Because your head being okay is part of your whole system being okay. True. You cannot have health without mental health, you know? So one of the things I think people have taken for granted for a very long time is our ability to function, or even our ability to maneuver through instances and situations in our lives, you know, and actually thrive. You go through a loss and you're somehow able to pick up your pieces and start afresh, you know, whether it's a heartbreak or the loss of a loved one, and start afresh. And we take that for granted, you know. We lose our businesses and we are able to still pick up the pieces and move on, and we take that for granted. But one of the riders that makes that possible is good mental health. Okay. Without good mental health, you're unable to be resilient and unable to pick up your pieces when the things of life come at you. So I like the fact that you brought me to mental health in the workplace. And you'd wonder, how can mental health be an issue in the workplace?
Yeah. Because what we generally and basically know about mental health is just a description that I put out to you there. Because what you have also spoken about, thinking about it, it sounds to me like stress and depression. I don't know if there's a difference between that and mental health. Because when you are depressed, it's a space where you're not thinking straight, your body is not cooperating to do the things that you want it to do. And you even go into dementia sometime, and you're not yourself. You get into insomnia, you know, because of depression and those things that are not in the place where you want them to be. Is there a difference between that and mental health?
Now, let's at least to demystify mental health, let's just think health of the mind.
Okay.
Is your mind healthy? Mental health is about the health of your mind. You know, is your mind healthy? And that is why even before we get into the respective descriptors, we look at the basic things that improve our functionality. So for your mind to be healthy, what do you need? You need good nutrition. For your mind to be healthy, you need rest. You need to be able to sleep for your mind to be healthy. You need to be able to exercise for your mind to be healthy. Then you need to be able to function to show that your mind is healthy, you know? So when you cannot achieve any of this, then you're suffering from a mental health issue. Now, mental health issues also appear on a continuum. They're not always as bad when they start, no. Yeah, they appear on a
we are getting there, and I can see you're getting into the signs and the symptoms. But what you have said that is really key is that mental health, or rather mental illness, is the state in which your mind is not functioning properly. You know, whatever your mind needs to function properly is lacking or missing. So how is this possible for someone to be able to work in such kind of a state. You at this time would probably give us the signs and symptoms, or even before we get there, is it even possible to work if you're not at the right state in your mind?
Now, it's not possible to work if you're in a severe state. And that is why I said mental health operates on a continuum from a mild to moderate to severe. Yeah. Okay. So before you get to the severe state, there are usually things that happen at the mild that, if not taken care of, become moderate, that if not taken care of, further grow to become severe, you know? Okay. And that is when, at the point where it's severe, then we can say you are unable to function. Because at the point of severity, your functionality, and not just at work, your functionality socially is affected, occupational functionality is affected, physical functionality is affected. So you drop in different areas. But in actual sense, you see that doesn't just happen.
It just doesn't happen. Yes. No, yes. You don't just wake up and you're mentally ill and you can't do anything. Okay. So where does it start?
Exactly. And that's the point where, at least, thank you for taking us back to where we were. Now, it starts from the mild point. And even before the mild point, we normally have biopsychosocial predisposing factors, biological factors that can predispose us to mental health, physical factors that can predispose us, psychological, social factors that could predispose us as well, and environmental that could predispose us. Biological could be your genes, you know, just your genes. Yeah, if you're growing up in a home, or rather you grew up in your family, and we check back in your family, and someone ever suffered from a mental illness, you are predisposed. I didn't say you will get. No, I said you're predisposed.
It means it's hereditary.
Yes. There are elements of mental health that are actually hereditary. Yes.
Okay.
So if you had a parent who had, and first degree relatives affect people more than distant relatives, yeah? So if it was a father or a twin or a sister or a brother, you may be more at risk than anyone else, like an uncle, a grandfather, who you may be more at risk. But generally, genetics are a predisposing factor.
Okay.
Then we have psychological factors. That are, apart from genetics, we even have the way the way the chemicals in the body operate. Efficiencies in one area can predispose you to a mental illness, you know? And that is when we think about our hormones, and we think about the different chemicals in the body and the messages they send. A deficiency in one can cause a mental illness, or an excess can cause a mental illness, yeah? Or can predispose you to one. Then we have the psychological factors. Your ability to cope, generally just you. You know, are you the kind of person who, when you're in trouble, nothing will happen until your troubles are sorted? Yeah? You ruminate, you just go around the same issue. And you've seen those kinds of people. People who, when anything happens, the world comes to a total standstill. And until they sort out whatever that is, they cannot get through it, you know? So that is another factor.
So that's not a personality. It's not a personality. It's a mental issue.
No. That personality can predispose you to a mental issue. And just for your information, by the way, thank you for asking that, because personality issues are mental issues. Imagine, that is actually true. Personality issues, yes. Personality issues are mental issues, you know? So the kind of personality someone has can predispose them to mental illness, you know? Then apart from that, your social setup, living in a broken home, it doesn't mean, and as I say predisposing factors, I don't mean that if these things happen, you have to have a mental illness. I'm just pointing out the things that could predispose you to a mental illness. Exactly. You live in a broken home, your parents died early, and you were raised by possibly a relative, or you grew up in the streets, or whatever, depending, or you grew up in a group home, like a children's home, among others. Those are things that can predispose you to a mental illness. Environmental, you live around industries, because industries have chemicals that actually affect children, you know, and can get someone to be able to have spikes in the wrong places, you know. So those are all things that can predispose us to mental illness. Like a good one is dementia, or at least Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's actually, exposure to certain chemicals can actually predispose you to Alzheimer's.
But Alzheimer's is mainly, it affects the older people.
Contrary to what you may think, generally it does. But there are situations where there are outliers. There are situations where it has affected younger people.
Alzheimer's?
And it also, yes, and it also did dementia. Because Alzheimer's comes under dementia, yeah? Now, before you get there, the thing is, for example, kids who have Down syndrome, yeah? At the age of 40, they are predisposed to Alzheimer's. They're actually likely to start suffering from Alzheimer's, you know? And yet they're just 40. You would imagine a person who suffers from Alzheimer's it must be much older. So such things can generally predispose you to mental illness. You're getting it? Yeah.
Yes.
That's when we are thinking about the causative factors. So we are all at risk.
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
we are all at risk. So that is how it starts. Those are the risk factors that we are looking at. So when it has just started, what are the symptoms that we should look out for, especially for those who live with us? And if you have come from such kind of a home, and now maybe this is your cousin, and you already have the knowledge that it could be hereditary, this person may have been predisposed because of the environment or because of the social environment that they lived in. So what are you supposed to look out for when you are living with them?
Okay, thank you for that. Now, the things you look out for vary based on what someone's experience is. But now, let me give you the very basics. Like, let's think of what? Depression. Yeah? What do you look out for? Fatigue. And fatigue, let me tell you, fatigue is a big telltale sign. And fatigue day in, day out is a problem. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It's not just
fatigue can be, no. Fatigue can actually be a pointer to a problem that is brewing behind the scenes that nobody has paid attention to. You know, lack of appetite. Imagine, just lack of appetite can be a pointer to a problem. And sometimes even eating too much can be a pointer to a problem. The comfort eating, we call it comfort eating, we loosely call it comfort, can be a pointer to something else. The lack of sleep or sleeping too much can be a pointer, yeah? But now you see, you don't look at these things in isolation. Now that you've pointed out, what would we look at in our home environment? When someone changes, we'll notice. Are they more irritable than they used to be? Talk about their mood. Are they more irritable than they used to be? Are they, what is it? Are they angrier than they've been in the past? Are they bitter and things like that? Are there any factors that are causing them to be that way? Like, for example, if you're angry and you've lost a loved one, it's okay. That's human. It's a human response. It's okay. Take your time, be angry. Imagine naturally, you get out of it. There's a natural process out of it. However, if out of nowhere, you're just becoming irritable, you don't want to talk to anyone, you're withdrawing from everyone, you know, and things like that, that can be
for a period of how long? Because I can be angry 2 days because someone is here, I don't want to talk to them. So how long is enough for you to now become suspicious and say, this fatigue is past an attitude, this person is staying in their room too long, they're not coming out? Because I have had situations where, like, a teenager is locked up in their room and they're only coming out to have lunch and go back, to have dinner and go back. Is that fatigue? Is just an attitude? And if this is happening repetitively, then how long, after how long should we now begin to worry?
And that's why, thank you for that. That's why I said you don't look at these things in isolation. Because if you're just fatigued, really, and there's nothing else going on, that's fine. You may be fatigued because you've been working long hours. And you see, if I can explain your behavior, then I have no reason to worry. Okay. Yeah? You lock yourself in your room because you're a teenager and you claim to want some privacy. Because they do that. Yeah? At that age, they feel that they need a little more privacy than anyone else. They do that. But for as long as it's just that and nothing else, yeah, then there's no reason to worry. On the other hand, especially for teenagers, I'd ask a parent to pay attention. Do you know why? Because sometimes they withdraw like that And then they keep dropping hints of other things. And if you don't pay attention to those other things, they can actually brew into a problem, especially for teenagers, or they could actually be engaging in something else that may be behaviorally wrong, or having another thing they're indulging in that is not necessarily adding value to them. Exactly. So a parent needs to pay attention. So anyway, what I would ask people to look out for is, can you explain someone's behavior? If you looked at them in context, is it something you can explain? If you can explain it, then I don't think you have a reason to worry, But on the other hand, if it continues, if I'm angry for 2 days, that's normal. I'm angry for a continuous 1 month. That's funny. Because even maintaining an angry face is a lot of hard work. So you can imagine if someone can maintain an angry face and they are not smiling with anybody at all for a period of a month. On a serious note, what you're thinking is what it may be. Pay attention. That is something that needs to be looked at. If you're irritated or you're sleeping too much, but it's because you've been working for the last 1 week, or rather 3 months, for example, or 1 month continuously without rest, and you've just had it, and a whole weekend you sleep throughout, there's nothing wrong. But if you're only sleeping throughout and you don't want to engage in anything else, sometimes you don't even want food, you just want to sleep, then maybe we need to pay attention, So the signs of an issue, and you see, the thing is, even the sleeping throughout the weekend is a sign of a mental problem. They're telling you I'm tired. They're telling you I can't do it anymore. But human beings have a natural ability to bounce back when we are in a bad place, We have the natural ability. So it doesn't mean that every time something happens, you quickly need to run and seek therapy. No. We have a natural ability to bounce back when things are falling apart. But when you realize that someone's natural resources are empty and they no longer have the natural ability to bounce back, you need to pay attention. Yes.
Okay, so how do we get to learn that someone has actually lost their resilience at the place of work? Because at the place of work, what happens is you report to work, do your duty, and get back home. So people assume you're just okay because everyone is minding their own business. It's at home maybe that they're able to tell that you are not really resilient anymore. But at home also, you have just a few hours. So how is it? How is this mental illness in the workplace? Why are we even talking about it? Because in the workplace, mentally ill, you should not be there.
That is true. In the workplace, and that is why we have leave days, Ideally, in the workplace, when you've had enough and you're experiencing some level of burnout, or you're going towards that place where you're worn out and you cannot do it anymore, ideally you should take a break. And taking a break means taking a break, not taking a break and being called back to work to hold fort here and there or to train somebody and stuff like that. No, it means taking a break completely. Now, there are two things that I think people need to look out for, especially in the workplace. I like what you pointed out, that in the workplace, it may be harder to determine if someone is worn out. Actually, no. Well, you know why it's not impossible to determine that, or it's not necessarily harder? Because we spend our most hours in the workplace. And you can imagine, our colleagues are always aware of us being at our best at any given time. Leave alone even our colleagues, even ourselves. I'll give two people a responsibility. That's yourself and your colleague, the person next to you, So I'll start by talking about yourself. When you wake up in the morning, despite the fact that you've done this job for many years, are you looking forward to your day? Or do you wish you could sleep longer? Because if you wish you could sleep longer, and more, you're nowadays wishing that out of the 5 days or 6 days a week you work, you'd rather sleep for 5 days and go to work for 2 days, because people get there. when you begin to feel, because you can feel it, you may be dragging yourself out of bed and you go to work. Not a bad thing, but you can feel that, honestly speaking, it is taking everything from me to go to work. You may need to pay attention to yourself. Because the truth is, if you feel 5 days a week, I'd rather stay home than go to work, chances are there's nothing much you're doing at work. Chances
You're
are.
only waiting for salary.
Chances are you're waiting for salary, you're pushing paper, chances are that you're not necessarily being as productive in the workplace. And you see, this is one of the reasons why, interestingly, the World Economic Forum last year said that businesses lose up to 2.5 trillion in lost productivity annually for all mental illnesses. 2.5 trillion worldwide. I'm not even talking about Kenya, you know? And if you think about anxiety and depression only, according to the World Health Organization last year, 1 trillion for depression and anxiety only. Now, you know, productivity is a big part of businesses running. And if I can't be productive, I need to not be in the office. Either I need rest, because there are many ways. You see, mental illness is not only treated with medicine. Mental illness is treated in many other ways.
Therapy.
So either I need rest, either I need to take a break. Catering for my mental health, I can do so many other things to cater for myself, you know, so that I am able to be productive enough.
Yes.
To ensure that whatever deliverables we need to deliver on, I'm on track with that. You see, for as long as I'm not as productive, something is not working, and that thing needs to be fixed so that I can be okay. Yes.
But you know, Edna, when people are going to work, no one just wants to quit because you're working for a reason. You know what you're benefiting from this work. And though you are feeling that something is amiss, and you also know the consequences of not reporting or even taking that break, nobody wants to do that. So everybody wants to push themselves against what they actually feel and what they can bear. You know, so what is even before we get to the solution, when you identify, you know, when these people now report to work, you can actually see that they're just pushing papers and waiting for salary and they're not productive enough. But telling them to take a break and quit is the last thing maybe they want to do. You may want to do that as the advisor, but the person being advised, the person in the situation, may not be ready to do that because of the consequences that may follow, you know? So what is supposed to be done in the workplace, if at all we have mental illness, given the statistics that you have given to us?
Actually, I don't think quitting is an option, even. Because I think, honestly, asking someone to quit on account of their mental health is discriminatory.
True.
Sincerely speaking. Just like it's discriminatory, especially for something that can be addressed. It's not fair. Yeah. So I think one of the things that I would imagine that would be nice in the workplace, before there's the personal responsibility, then there's the responsibility we have together as colleagues, then there's the responsibility of the organization. Personal responsibility is being very self-aware, knowing where you are at, using your leave days as you should. You see, the tradition for us, especially if I'm to talk about us Kenyans, whenever people go on leave, people take 14 days block leave, you know. For those 14 days, chances are 13, in very many instances, we are not necessarily resting. We are engaging in so many other things, you know, as we spend our 14, you know. And sometimes we have many people who actually do the work of calling the office just to figure out if everything is running okay, you know. And ideally, you're supposed to be away from that office for a good reason, to take time to rejuvenate yourself. Rejuvenation does not just mean a holiday. Rejuvenation sometimes actually just means doing something other than take care of your cows, take care of your chicken, feed them, sit at home and do nothing. Don't do the things you do when you're in the office. Do the things you can't do when you're in the office, ideally. And the other thing is, you can't only indulge in drinking and smoking and all sorts of other things that, frankly speaking, only wear you out. They are thought of as leisurely, But when you spend the most of your time nursing a hangover, I don't think you're having leisure. There's no pleasure in that, I think you are exhausting yourself, So I think there are very many other deliberate things that we can do, deliberate activities we can do to engage ourselves. We can embark on exercise. Find group activities, aside from, because for a long time, our main group activities were meeting in a pub and drinking or going to fellowship. For the longest time. Nowadays, we have many options. We have hiking. I've seen people, especially with Corona, I've seen men biking together. You see, I've seen people engaging in running together, exercising together. Those are very good activities, walking together. Those are good activities to do to keep yourself mentally healthy. And contrary to what people think, exercise is not for your body. Exercise is for your mind, by the way. Your body eats food. You want to lose weight, go reduce, go adjust your portions, work on your nutrition. But exercise helps you with your mental functioning completely. That is one of the things you can do. Take care of yourself. Be self-aware and take care of yourself. In terms of colleague, there are things we can do together. You spend your most hours in the office. Why not find a way to get along with your colleagues? You don't need to be angry at the entire office half the time. Find a way to get along with each other. Find activities that edify the relationships you have within the workplace, that build everybody. They don't necessarily tear down, or chip in, the energy you use to just do when somebody passes. It's a lot of energy. Think about it.
And roll your eyes.
And roll your eyes, So dropping some of these things that we carry people too much. So we need to lay people down and find ways to work with people because we need people to thrive, Then in terms of the employer, there are various things the employer can do. And I've seen employers have already started. One, there are employers who have allowed their staff to get mental health support, including psychotherapy and even medication with insurance. That was not catered for a very long time, but now we have employers who have that catered for,
Edna will get to the treatment. We'll get to the treatment and even how the employers are able to assist. But now, I like what you are bringing, that indeed, it's not that the employers don't even give you time out and leave days, People actually get this time because if that working too much until the body just gets stuck, it can't move. Even though you push it, it can't move. I'm surprised that all this happens as a result of overworking it. And think about it, even if it's a car that you use and you don't service and you don't refuel, honestly, it cannot move. So these are not things that people don't know. I wonder what happens that we miss out on such basics, such as taking care of having a me time and just taking care of myself. People get leave days, and as you have put it, people don't even rest. There's a time they want to go to the village and do 1, 2, 3 and do so many things, and it's a time for them not to sleep and sleep. It's a time for them not to drink and drink, and they think that is leisure. You said it's not. So thinking about all these things, what is it that people have even lost? Because if you can't use that time wisely, for sure this work is taking a toll on you, but then given time, you are not even taking that time for yourself to replenish, What is it? Is it a lack of some emotional intelligence, or is it lack of a know-how that this is how I'm slowly getting into mental illness? Is this awareness even there?
That's a really good question. Actually, it's pointed me out to something I thought about a while back. I think people fear being on their own, first and foremost. Or rather, people fear their own company, I think many people, the reason why there's nothing, okay, first and foremost, relationships are good. But sometimes, if you can't stand your own company, frankly speaking, you can't expect others to stand your company. So I think one of the things that people need to gradually learn is to be able to spend time with me. Because there is no way to be sensitive to what I am feeling unless I spend time with myself.
Okay.
Otherwise, what I do is this. I feel stressed, but I'm around people. And my group of people are all going to drink. So what will I do? I will go drink. You realize I've not processed my stress. I have hidden it in my group and my drinking. You see? On the other hand, if I was alone, maybe I would have a chance to think, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? What is going on? What is amiss? If we can be that self-conscious or self-aware, I think we'll be in a good space to begin working on our mental health, because the first person who should know you're not okay is yourself before your partner or the people in your life even get to know. You should know, I'm not feeling, So I think that's a good place to start. I think we have a fear, and I think the fear is facing ourselves. I don't blame us entirely for that fear, because I think sometimes, culturally we were raised like that. We were never encouraged to sit on our own.
We were raised like that mostly.
Yes.
That's how we were raised. And
Yes.
so, Edna, if I have gotten to know, if I have become aware that this is what is going to lead me into mental illness, and this is also how I am able to overcome it, by having some me time and having that time to rest and nourish myself and replenish myself, if I am already aware and then I go to my place of work, I know my state and my condition so well, is it okay for me to speak it out? And when I do, what kind of support should I expect my colleagues to give me without having to stigmatize my condition?
Yeah. Thank you for speaking about stigma, because I think it is one of our very big problems in the mental health space. I agree, yes. Now that you're aware of how you're feeling, yes, you should go to the office, and yes, you should be able to say, honestly speaking, I'm unable to work on this assignment. I have not been feeling well. I could use 2 or 3 days off to be able to feel better. You're getting? Worst case scenario, you could actually get a sick off. You see, have a doctor do an assessment of you and get a sick off, depending on how you're feeling. But I think ideally, we should be in this space where we can give people mental health holidays, just like we give sick off days for physical health. If I told my boss that, they should be able to listen. Do you know why? Because if I continue coming to the office so that they can see me physically, but I'm unable to do everything my job entails, I'm not adding value to them.
I get you. One of the fears, Edna, that people may have before taking this kind of approach is the consequences. I may just mention this, and then my boss says, okay, I think you're too old, we will get somebody else. Is there a particular age group that is affected by this mental illness, other than the ones who are already predisposed, maybe from their homes and their environment? Other than those who are predisposed, does this infect or affect a particular age group? Because if I just say that, and maybe I am 50 or 45, my boss may just say, I think age has really caught up with you. Allow us to get somebody else, and you step out. And nobody wants to lose their job for being honest about their situation. They would rather drag themselves and be sure of getting some pay.
I think for a very long time, I don't think everyone has streamlined yet. I think for a very long time, that would have easily happened. A person says, I'm feeling unwell, and the boss easily says, no, you're too old, we'll get someone else. The truth is, for most employers, they're streamlining that. For most employers who are honestly, genuinely interested in mental health, they're streamlining that so that someone is not fired on account of their mental health. As I said earlier, it's discriminatory to fire someone on account of their mental health. On a serious note. Why? Because the things that affect people can affect anybody.
True.
In terms of age group, I wouldn't say that there is one mental health that is, there's a particular age group that is most affected than others. Let me give you we have a cluster of more than 22 mental health disorders. Clusters, more than 22 clusters, you know, depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, food disorders, sexual dysfunctions, paraphilias, eating disorders, among others. We have social anxieties and all that. Now, the thing is, based on depending on which mental disorder you're dealing with, there are age groups that may be more predisposed than others. You're getting? For example, when you think neurocognitive disorders, like what we were talking about earlier, dementia, Alzheimer's, is more likely to affect the older than the younger, you know? When we think anxiety tends to affect more younger than older. People actually from the age of 18 upwards, you know, up to about 25, you know? So you can't really, I wouldn't be in a position to say that there's an age group that is more vulnerable than the others. And that's why earlier on I said, all of us are at risk. All of us can be affected by mental health issues, you know? All of us can have a mental illness at any given time. It just depends on the confounding factors. What are the things that we are going through? What support do we have? Some of us have just not lost our minds, or rather have not had a full mental illness just because of the social support that we have. We have families who, when anything is happening, they come around us and they are willing to do anything for us, and they cushion us so that we don't feel the impact of what we are going through. Some have not had full-blown mental illnesses. Why? Because they have good employers.
Support.
You know? Yeah, good support. So support is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with mental health issues. So there's no age group I would say are more vulnerable than the others, but I think employers should allow people to speak more about it, because the more we speak about it, the more normal it becomes to speak about it. And the more normal it is to speak about it, the less people will be punished for saying this or for saying what they're going through.
Okay, let's look at, you're talking about support. Let's look at other ways of cushioning this, because there are families that we have had keep and hide their children or relatives who people know are mentally ill, you know, and they don't expose them outside there. I don't know if they missed a very crucial time of support, or something just happened that the situation was left out of hand and never sorted. Did they miss support? Was there some kind of shame? And how else can employers also give support now that you're talking about this disease at the workplace?
Now, for families who, for one reason or the other, I think one of the big things that has affected families so much in line with mental health has been shame. You remember when we were talking earlier, and one of the things you pointed out was mentally ill people walk naked or collect garbage. There's nothing prideful about walking naked or collecting garbage. So the truth is, if your relative was walking naked or collecting garbage, if we are to go with just that, you would not even want people to know. You know? And that's the thing about mental illness. For the longest time, people didn't even know there was help. In terms of our culture, we explained it away with a curse, you know, among others. And you see, there's nothing prideful about a curse. Who wants anyone to know that in their family they've been cursed? Exactly. Exactly, you know, or bewitched, you know. So because of our cultural explanations of what mental illness was, we sort of developed an attitude around it. And by the way, stigma is not just local, it's not just Kenyan or African, it's actually worldwide. Stigma around mental health is worldwide. Wow. The only difference is in other places, they now talk about it more than we do. And they have a little more support than we do. We may not necessarily be in that space. But the thing is, I think the idea that we attached shame to mental health, mental illness, is the reason why people never sought help.
Okay.
For the longest time, you know? And the more we demystify that, encourage people not to be ashamed because a family member is suffering from mental health. The more likely people will get the support they need.
I agree. Talking about that, being bold and speaking out there, we are unfortunately out of time, but you could tell us what is the cost of treatment, if there is. Sometimes people suffer like this, and because they actually think you can't be treated, I'm embarrassed to just take my relative to Madare. When I think about seeing a psychiatrist, I already know I am mad. That's why I'm being taken there. When you hear a psychiatrist, it's such a big name. You just know they see mad people. So what is the cost of treatment, if at all there is? And where can we get this?
Okay. So the cost of treatment of mental health varies. The truth is, in our country today, one of the cheapest places you can get mental health support is at Madare Hospital. That's the truth. Now, I know the reason why we would be resistant to go to Madare is the same reason we've just talked about. It's the shame associated with mental health. But if we think we want our family member, our relative, our friend to be better again, depending on how much money we have, that's a great place to start. We start where we can afford, So one of the most affordable I know that is open to the public, anyone can go there and seek help, is Madare Hospital. Apart from Madare Hospital, we have psychiatrists and psychologists in the country. The truth is, psychiatrists and psychologists work together. Psychiatrists do the administration of medication, Psychologists don't necessarily do that. So one of the things, you could still see a psychologist, depending on how severe it is. And a psychologist will work with a psychiatrist to get you the medication you need to be able to support you as you go through psychotherapy to deal with your situation. I think one of the easiest ways to deal with mental health is deal with it before it gets out of hand, before it gets too severe. When it's still mild or moderate, because there are situations that you could go through just psychotherapy and you'll get better and find a way to handle them, But there are places where when you get to, then now you need medication as well, So, cost varies depending on who you're seeing, I know, but there is available help for especially those who need help at a particular time. I know Kenyatta even offers free mental health counseling for teenagers, for adolescents between the age of 13 and 18, and things like that. So I think, and 25 actually, 18 and 25. So I think we need to be able to just speak more about this. This forum that you have with us here is one of the places that will benefit many. Speak more about mental health. Encourage people not to be ashamed about it. Get people who have experienced it to testify about it, and we push on. Yes.
Thank you, Edna. You could give us your parting shot, your last words, as you tell us what is the consequence of doing nothing at all about this. You know it, and you just quiet and whatever happens. Yes.
Okay. Allow me to answer that before I give my parting shot. The consequence of doing nothing about it is it gets out of hand. When it gets out of hand, we begin to cry about suicide. We begin to cry about people being battered, because even some of the people who batter people are just people who are struggling with mental health. We begin to complain about insubordination. Issues of insubordination could be stemming from mental health. We begin to complain about people who are lurking around and looking for our children, the rapists, the abusers, among others. So the problem of not doing anything about it is people will find ways to cope that are not necessarily healthy. And those ways to cope hurt all of us. They don't benefit any of us. That is why we must do something about it. Above all else, my point would be, there is no health without mental health. You need people to be at their best in the workplace. You need them to deliver for you the best they can, give you their A game at any given time. You must cater for their mental health needs, failure to which they can never give you their best. And their best is what is in their heads. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Edna. That was really informative, educative. We have actually learnt a lot. We have moved from one point of negligence, we have moved from one point of ignorance to a point where we now know something and we now know how to handle. I am really pleased to even hear that if we do nothing about it, then these people are going to turn to rapists and they're going to do harm to children. They're going to be suicidal. They're going to be, criminals, and we may have nothing to do about it when it's too late. Thank you so much. That was really great. I appreciate your time and also your pieces of advice. Thank you also, viewer, for viewing this program. I do hope that you have taken a lot home with you and you have changed your mindset on how you look at mental illness. Even people at work have this in their coping. Let's do something before it gets severe. My name is Betty Akuku. I have been your host. Thank you so much for joining us today.